Hello and welcome to the Matthew Allton Art channel again. Today I'm going to do a very quick sketch in gouache. I haven't used gouache for a while. I'm using my Stillman and Birn beige sketchbook paper for this. I find that using the beige paper with gouache helps me to judge the tones better, so that the sky, for instance, if it's a lighter sky, really pops, and then it gives me a sort of a mid-tone to work with for the rest of the painting as well. The reason I'm doing a gouache and a tiny sketch, hopefully a quick sketch, I'm hoping to take an hour or less for it really, but we'll see how involved I get with it, is because the Patreon has got a fortnightly art challenge, and a fortnightly art challenge is nocturne. So I've sort of picked a reference from the internet of grey clouds over water with red sunset rays on the bottom of those clouds, and a very pale blue sky going to sort of an orangey sky towards the horizon. Don't know if I'll be able to do all that, but that's the plan. So I'll be fulfilling the brief, I hope, and also getting something in just in time, because the end of the challenge is at the end of this month, so I've got today and tomorrow. Hence I'm starting this quite late at night. See how we get on. I've reactivated my gouache palette. Those of you who watch the channel will know that when I use gouache, I squeeze the gouache paint into the little palette trays here, and then when I finish, just let it dry out. But you can reactivate those just by spraying it with a spray bottle. So I've wet the colours. May need to wet them a bit more, but with a wet brush, and I'll be using water-filled brushes as well. Derwent water-filled brushes that I've used before on the channel. You can wet the paper and the paint and get it to the right consistency to reuse. So it's very economical, really. It's sort of like using watercolours in palettes or pans, but of course they're opaque, unlike watercolours. Okay, so I'll get on with it rather than keep whiffling on at you, and see where we end up. Well, I'm starting here adding a very pale blue, so I think it's ultramarine mixed with a lot of white. At the top, the sky is darker and bluer towards the top, and gets gradually brighter and pinker towards the bottom. It's quite difficult sometimes to cover the brown paper when you're reactivating gouache like this, because you need to add the paint is by nature a bit thinner, because you're only using a wet brush to reactivate it, and because it's thinner, it's less opaque. So squeezing paint from a tube with gouache is definitely better for coverage, but you can still do it. You can see I'm layering up a little bit over here. It dries very quickly, of course, gouache, so you can add colour and then add another layer in effect over the top of that. It also looks a bit patchy, gouache, as it dries, and certainly if you've got lots of whites in the mix, that can look lighter than it actually does when it's dry while it's wet. And you can see that the unevenness has sort of disappeared a little bit as it's dried. I'm now adding grey clouds. These are sort of higher clouds, stratus clouds, and I'm using a brush and dragging sideways, and then I'm adding a lower layer of clouds that's nearer to the horizon in a darker grey, because they're thicker. You can see I'm just scumbling it on really to start with. I'm putting in the horizon line there. Now there's dark clouds behind and some lighter clouds in front, so sort of layers of clouds here. So I'm trying to indicate that. I'm not slavishly copying the reference photograph here, i.e. putting every cloud bubble in the same place. I'm just trying to get the effect of the reference and making my own version of this scene. So you can see with gouache, because it's opaque, you can put lights over darks and vice versa, whereas with watercolour, of course, I'd have to be leaving the lighter clouds in front of the darker clouds, painting around them in effect. So it's much easier in gouache, I find. Now using a very bright salmony pink that I've mixed there to indicate the brightness, and also just adding a bit of the sky peeping through behind those grey clouds. And again, I would have had to leave that with watercolour, whereas in gouache I can add it after I've added the clouds. So it makes things very much easier. Adding some very distant clouds there within the sunset area. Of course, they get much smaller the further they are away, so I'm trying to indicate that by small thin brush strokes. And now a blue streak across for distant mountains, a very dark blue, and I've just wobbled that line a little bit to indicate that there's undulations in the distant hills there. And then I've put a darker, nearer to the horizon, nearer to the viewer, of trees and a low shoreline across the bay. Now I'm adding the water, and again you can see how it's being done. First using a big brush. I try using a fan brush there to create some texture for the ripples on the water, but that's not very successful. So I moved to a very fine water fill brush to add some ripples in dark and light. You'll see me using a lighter paint in a minute. And I'm sort of trying to get that to be brighter in the centre of the photograph where the sunset is. There isn't much pink reflected in the water on the actual reference, so I didn't put it in on my painting either. Maybe I should have done, I don't know. But you can see that all those tiny little brush marks are giving now the effect of water ripples. And I think you can see again that when I put those lighter ones on, they're quite white, but they actually dry paler, as I was saying when I was doing the sky. Getting towards the end now, really. I'm just going in and tinkering the clouds, adding some depth, so some darker just to give them some depth. But we're nearly finished. There it is signed. Very quick. Well, this is the final painting, a very quick sketch as I said. It took only 45 minutes, so considering that, I'm really happy with the overall appearance and the atmosphere that I've got in this painting. It's very small, which is partly why it was done so quickly. It was only, I think, 13 centimetres by 17 or 12 by 17, something like that. And I sort of did it on a piece of paper that would fit in a ready-made frame that I've got already. But overall, I'm really happy with how it's gone, especially as I haven't used gouache for a while. I've been using oil paints recently, and although there are similarities in that you can paint lights over darks with oil paints, of course, as you can with gouache, it's quite a different texture to the paint, really. So I've obviously got some muscle memory from painting gouache, as I have been doing over last year, really, quite a lot. And I really do quite like it. I'm becoming a bit of a fan of gouache, really. It's a lot easier to paint outdoors, for instance, not that I do much of that, by taking that little mixing tray that you saw with a dried gouache with me, rather than taking lots of different tubes of paint and a separate mixing palette, that sort of thing. So it's quite a portable medium to use. So maybe this summer again I will try and explore plein air painting again a bit more, but I tried last year and didn't get very far with it. But I've certainly completed the challenge for this fortnight with the Patreon, and I have submitted it, and it's gone down quite well, the painting. Okay, thank you for your time and watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, then please give it a thumbs up. Do comment on the videos if you can. I get very few comments, which is a shame. I sort of wanted this YouTube channel to be a bit of a community feel about it. I get that from the Patreon, of course, because the people who have signed up for the Patreon are a little community of would-be professional artists, I suppose, all learning from each other and getting better and improving, inspiring each other with these challenges. And we do social drink and draw events and things like that, where we all draw the same reference and have a chat and a drink while we're doing it. It's a really good group. If you're interested in art and want to paint and draw, but often find yourself not drawing because life gets in the way, then I'd recommend certainly joining up. I'll put the details in the comments in the description, sorry, of the video. So do think about joining up. It's really friendly group, and it might help you focus on art a bit more than if you just left to your own devices. Right, I will see you on the next one. Thanks very much. As I say, do subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're new here and you haven't subscribed before. I'm trying to grow those numbers as well. And I will see you on the next one. Bye.